Tonight, I can report to the American people and to the world that the United States has conducted an operation that killed Osama bin Laden.
Where we continue to follow the capture and killing of Osama bin Laden now.
Those are just some of the scenes overnight as thousands of Americans gathered in celebration of Osama bin Laden's death.
Former Navy SEAL Rob O'Neill says he has thought about the mission every day since that May Day in 2011.
From multiple conversations you had with Rob O'Neill over the past year and a half, how'd you get
access? And you described that his head kind of exploded when you hit him.
I actually hit him 3 times because I shot him twice when he was standing and once on the ground.
That is the fucking American badass right there.
We are not going for fame and we are not going for bravado. We are going for the single mom who dropped her kids off at elementary school on a Tuesday morning, and then 45 minutes later she jumped to her death out of a skyscraper.
If you need help, hang up and then dial your operator.
I'm Rob O'Neill, and this is the Operator Podcast. Welcome back. Episode 149 of the Operator Podcast. Back in studio here. Did a lot of traveling. This is the busy time of year for speeches and whatnot. So I'm out and about. I actually gave a few speeches in Chicago. I went to Chicago last week. I got to stay right downtown at One Chicago. It's a building. It's one building in Chicago. One Chicago. Really nice. Great place. Right in the heart of it. I was able to get to a few steakhouses. We gave a talk about Ibogaine at Trump Hotel in Chicago, which is actually my favorite hotel in the country. No kidding. It's a kick-ass hotel. They do a great job with the hotels. If you're a Democrat, you're going to spin right off the fucking planet if you stay at a Trump hotel because everything says Trump on it. He doesn't even drink, and Trump wines in the room for a very reasonable price. Everything is in the big, beautiful Trump chocolate bars. I have stayed there a lot. When we used to go to Bears quite a bit. Me and Tommy O, Shorty, Slick. We'd bring some people down. Crew of dudes there. Jason Pascavage joins us. He's in Chicago, buddy of mine from high school. I didn't get to the Bears game this year. Tommy O went there. I saw pictures. Shorty was there. Not me. I couldn't make it. I had to get back. Had to do some traveling. Had to get back behind the mic to do the podcast. But it was cool. It was interesting. A lot of my buddies are firefighters. A lot of them veterans, Army, Navy. Dude I used to work with, Jim Gorman, out there. His sons are out there. I was able to hang out with Jack and Mike Gorman, firefighters, Army. It's really interesting to talk to them because you're getting... Firefighters have to go to put out fires. And they go to neighborhoods where fires are started. And there's a lot getting started now on purpose in Chicago. There's turf wars. There are Mexican gangs, South American gangs, American gangs, locals that don't like that stuff. And I guess what a lot of the Tren de Aragua types are doing is setting fire to the back wooden stairs at certain houses because they want to get everybody out so they can move in. And I guess they're being as cordial as you can be with arson because they're making sure people can get out the front door. Like they're legit not trying to kill families, but they are trying to ruin their lives, I guess. Is as cordial as one gets when one's banging with gangs, or gang banging, as the kids say, a good gang banging, or whatnot. But yeah, but they get in there, and what's interesting is they deal a lot in the hot neighborhoods in Chicago, the ones that are bad. I stayed in downtown Chicago, and it looks a lot better. I didn't go out late, but it's pretty bad there. A lot of shootings, a lot of killings. You see that stuff too. Chicago's bad. And I was able to hear some stories. I didn't hear any gunfire. I do know what that sounds like, but I didn't hear any there. Didn't run into any issues, really. But hearing the stories about the neighborhoods, man, these are war zones over there. These are really, really bad. And we'll get into why it is legal for President Trump to have the National Guard sent in there. if the mayor and the governor aren't helping, which they're not. They're actually impeding, and there's a number of reasons for that. Obviously, to maintain power. If people like the Governor Pritzker say that, oh, Trump came in and fixed it, they'll make them look bad, and God forbid, Democrats tried to work with Donald Trump. Imagine what this country would do if 10% of the Democrats in Congress worked with this administration. I don't know if you noticed, a lot of good stuff's been happening around the world and a lot of wars are ending. And the Democrats still aren't on board because they hate Trump and they don't know why. Don't know why, other than name calling, really. No kings. No kings. They don't even know what they were protesting. They don't want kings. They don't want a monarchy or whatever they were saying. They don't want. They'll vote for. They don't want dictators, but they'll vote for a communist dictator in New York, which they're going to do, and it's going to end like it always ends there in New York when that happens too. But hearing the stories, just of the, I feel bad for the people who are forced to live in those neighborhoods, and I almost, especially the older I get, I try to put myself in other people's shoes because everyone around you has a story that's happening to them. They've got their lives, they've got their drama, they've got the stuff that happens, and you don't know what they're having, and it's okay to take a second, even if a second's all you have, and try to understand where someone's coming from. Again, this is advice that I try to give myself every day because I spin up too. It's not like I'm sitting here calm all the time. I'll get pissed off and stuff and have a tendency to get angry, but if you could take a second, take a breath, and put yourself in someone else's shoes, you might be a better understanding. Because I feel bad for the legit families that are living in, a lot of it's government housing, which again, good intentions. How do they end up? But if you live in that and want to live a good life, but there's really not a lot of opportunity. Because when I say put yourself in someone else's shoes, I try to imagine myself as an under 18 dude in Chicago. If I'm born into that, what am I going to do? I mean, am I going to try to get educated in those school systems that don't work when there's gang violence everywhere? And I'm assuming if you don't join one of the gangs, they're going to have at you the whole time and stuff's going to end badly. But if you do join a gang, which you probably need to, it's probably going to end badly. It's not going to build you up. Can you go to school and stuff like that and get out? Yeah, you can. I've seen it. You can join the Marine Corps. You can join the Army. You can join the Navy, you can join the Air Force. But what I'm getting at is you can join the military to get out of there. But what if you don't want to? How are you going to handle discipline like that? I think it'd be good I think everybody, especially now with a lot of the stuff. I mean, we're a free country, allegedly, so you can't force people into conscription, which they do in different countries. I was in Turkey, they did that. They do it in Israel. You're forced military service. I don't think we should be forcing anybody here that if you want to serve, there should be a volunteer service. I don't think a draft or conscription would work, but a lot of these punks and getting out of high school could use it. Use a good kick in the ass. You're not punks. That was rude. See, I'm just saying how old I am, I guess. But anyway, yeah, this is episode 149. We're going to get into some stuff too, but I was just wondering if I didn't want to join the Navy or try to join the Marine Corps and ended up in the Navy or whatever, how would I act? Would I do the stuff they're doing? The sick answer is probably. I mean, if you don't have a lot to look forward to and you can get ahead that way, I don't know, man. It's a tough situation. It's got to be tough for the moms that are raising kids because there's a lot of single mothers there. I heard a story. One of the firefighters told me there was a dude, and I remember the number because I was in Chicago, and the number was 23, and that's obviously Michael Jordan's number. But dude had 23 kids. 23, this dude, and he hadn't met any of them. So there's an issue, too, that needs to be addressed. And then I think about what would I do raised by a single mom, because a single mom is the hardest job there. I mean, unless you're getting into like underwater welding, a single mom, especially in a place like that's got to be hard. Being a kid in that place has got to be hard. Being raised by a single mom, going to those public schools. I mean, school sucks anyway, doesn't it? School sucks. But what are you going to do to get ahead? I don't know. It's tough. It's one thing to sit here like I do and talk about violence and gun violence. And I hate to say gun violence because then the left's going to hop all over it and say guns are the problem, which they're not. Plus, these dudes are shooting each other up with illegal guns as it is. They don't do much about that though. Yeah, it's just a weird. That's a tough spot to be in. And hearing some of the stories of these firefighters, man, it's a tough line of work. Plus, you got to wait for the cops to get there first because guys have been known to shoot firemen, and anyway, it's tough. I was out there. I didn't see anything firsthand, but I did hear stories of you got to be careful when you're leaving if you're leaving a bar and or restaurant late at night. People might roll up and they know you got money. They know you got a watch. They know you got something. And if you're acting like people have been acting, and I mean everyone pretty much, got your head in your phone, not looking around, no situational awareness, you can get got. You got to pay attention to things, man. You don't want to get rolled up. Plus, if you're dealing with someone who has nothing to lose, why would they even bother trying to just rob you when they can just shoot you and take your shit? So, tough spot. I didn't see anything, but do keep your head on a swivel and be aware of things. I'm going to talk to the Gormans too and get hopefully all of them on here eventually. But I think you should hear some of the stories too because it really personalized it for me. Again, just talking on the phone or reading stories, it doesn't quite. It's not the same as talking to someone who's been there and done. I'll tell you what. I'd love to. I don't know if I could pull it off though. But I've seen reporters embed themselves with some of these gangsters and some of these gang members. I would love to talk to them face to face. I mean, I've been in dangerous spots too, but I wouldn't want that to be the ending. But if anyone's listening in Chicago or like Oakland, something like that, and you're willing to talk, I would love to hear about that. But we were talking. I was talking about how old I am because if I said all these damn kids with their loud music, bad mouthing their country and listening to the punk rock music, tells you I'm getting old. But that it is a nice segue because I want to talk about the sponsor of the show, Bubs, because this is collagen peptides from Bubs, and I love it because the older you get, the older that I am getting. I'm noticing like after the gym. Recovery takes a long, long time. Oh, especially now too. Your legs day, the toilet does not care 2 days later. It was legs day. It just hurts. Hair thins. I'm not talking about me, obviously, but like your skin gets rougher and your nails are ripping off, whatever. It sucks getting older, but it doesn't have to suck because Bubs natural collagen peptides, that's where they come in because when you start in your mid-20s, you start producing less of everything, and collagen is one of it. And every single year it goes down and down. And collagen is the protein that holds everything together. It's the glue that holds you together. And with Bubs, you can restore collagen levels to what your body naturally had in your youth. And that means stronger joints. I love that too. Stronger joints, healthier nails, hair, smoother skin, just cooler, faster recovery. That's a big one. If you're having trouble with recovery and you're getting old, which we're all getting old. We're all older right now than when I started this ad. But it's super easy to use. You put Bubs in anything. You put it in your coffee, your smoothie, your juice. I like smoothies. And this stuff goes in great because it's tasteless, odorless, and dissolves instantly. There's no clumps or weird aftertaste. And this is a tribute to Glenn Doherty. His call sign was Bub. Glenn Doherty died in Benghazi, former Navy SEAL, and that's it. I mean, everyone should know that story. But the Bubs is named after Bub. His call sign was Bub, and he was a dude that just pushed himself. Great dude. So his DNA, that's the thinking behind the Bubs brand, and to honor him, Bubs will donate 10% of all profits to charity, starting with the Glenn Doherty Memorial Foundation. So on top of that, Bubs is built to the highest standards. Like I said, there's no sugars, there's no junk in this stuff, there's no sweeteners in this stuff, there's no fillers. It's third-party tested, NSF certified for sport, Whole30 approved and sustainably sourced from grass-fed, pasture-raised cattle, trusted by over 100,000 customers. You might as well make that more. Go get this stuff too. And it was named the best collagen of 2024 by Health.com. Bubs doesn't just make the cleanest, most effective collagen peptides in the world. They also sell electrolyte supplements, MCT oil, creamer, and more. So you can live better longer. For a limited time only, listeners of this podcast are getting 20% off at bubsnaturals.com by using code The Operator. So that's go over to Bubs, B-U-B-S, Naturals, plural, .com. Use code The Operator. Bubsnaturals.com. Use code The Operator, and you're all set. After you purchase, they're going to ask you where you heard about it. Say you heard it from The Operator, and you can support our show. Go over to bubsnaturals.com. Use code The Operator for big savings. But yeah, the No Kings protests Spontaneous protest because they don't want kings. And you've heard it. I don't want to get into it at all, but we haven't had a king since King George was the King of England and right around 1776. And we declared independence from England and became we went to war a few times, but a country that fought through it. But we haven't had kings for a while, so I guess no kings kind of succeeded for the past few hundred years, and then on to Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and today, because there are still no kings. But it's just the way it's working is odd. Do you know what a color revolution is? Those are protest type peaceful bullshit, they say, generally run by intelligence agencies, and we've done them. We've done them here. We're doing them here. Do you remember the Arab Spring? I remember the Arab Spring because that was right around the time that we were going after bin Laden. That's what we assumed first when they called us into a room, when they said to us that the reason you guys are here is we found a thing, and the thing is in a house. The house is in a bowl in these mountains. These mountains are in a country. You're going to go get this thing, bring it back to us, and show it to us. And we asked them what the thing was that, can't tell you. Which country can't tell you. How we get in there can't tell you. Stuff like that. We assumed it was the Arab Spring. That's when it started in Tunisia, moved into Egypt, and then on into Libya, where eventually Muammar Gaddafi was taken out of power. And that looked like, the way it looked was an uprising, a peaceful protest uprising. And you remember the stuff when, I just mentioned Glenn Doherty, Bubs, and Benghazi. When it first happened, people in the Obama administration were saying, these were protests that started because of a video that was filmed, and we're going to find the guy that made the video. They put a dude in prison, too. And that's a cover. I mean, it was no spontaneous uprising, just like No Kings was. These are all sponsored. And the agency, our agencies are behind him sometimes too, the Arab Spring. I mean, we ended up bombing the shit out of him, taking Gaddafi out for a number of reasons. What was he up to? Because he was doing some pretty good stuff for Africa, but he was competing with the dollar. He was trying to make a currency for Africa as a whole, and maybe they could start backing oil with their currency. Anyway, he's dead. And then we were pretty much running guns out of Libya, out of that annex in Benghazi into, Al-Qaeda basically took over Syria, so I guess it worked. Whatever we were trying to do, whenever we get our people involved with shady shit like that, it rarely works. But I think the No Kings thing is one of those things too. There's deep state money behind it. There are powers that be that they're using people that I keep talking about on this podcast who don't even know they're being used, because what they do is they get people fired up, and they're spinning up the anti-Trump rhetoric, because they don't really know. I mean, if you had a brain in your head, you're going to see he's doing good stuff. But they refuse to believe it, and they think they're being told by NGOs and dark money that what they're doing is noble and they're going to save democracy or whatever the shit they keep saying, which is not even... and the useful idiots aren't smart enough to realize that it's big money behind it, dark money is behind it, and they're funding it like George Soros. The No Kings, these are not spontaneous when there's a union making all of their cute little signs with a union sponsorship on the signs. So they're being made by someone, and the funding needs to come from somewhere. And what they're telling you is the No Kings thing is about avoiding kings, about avoiding a hierarchy, about getting rid of power. But what the dark money, the deep state is doing is they're just rearranging it. It's not like they're just going to, they want to rearrange the power in the world, the new world order, the Great Reset. They really want that because it's not going to get kings out of power. It's going to give them more power and more money. They're billionaires. Billionaires are funding it, and follow the money. Money talks. If they were serious about No Kings and being fired up about it, why was it when they would say, if you don't get the vaccine, you can't work. If you don't get the vaccine, you can't travel. If you don't get the vaccine, you can't do whatever. And everyone went along with it, especially on the left, man. The left loves being told what to do by the government. What the hell happened there? Why do Democrats love being told what to do and then obeying? Remember Rage Against the Machine? It's like Rage for the Machine. They're fighting for this deep state money. The George Soros, the billionaires that are out there, they're not. You think George Soros is out there for the greater good? His Open Society Action Fund, he gave $3 million to Indivisible, is a group that pretty much one of the main organizers of No Kings. $3 million there, and then another one of his things, the larger network, is the Open Society Foundation. So it's the Open Society Action Fund, the Open Society Foundation. They gave 7.6 to the same Indivisible. So there's two of Soros' things: 3 million, 7.6 million. That's upwards of 10.6 million to the same people. And there's another one, and there's so many of these deep, dark billionaire monies, like the Arabella Network. They're a billion a year organization or empire, a lot of kings, if you will. And what they do is they just take money from big time donors that don't want to be seen as being donors, and they give it to lower level non-government organizations, the NGOs that are doing all this shady shit, sometimes with your money too. That's why you got to pay attention to things like USAID and Doge that points them out, but I hope that didn't go away. The Bill Gates Foundation, a lot of money there. Bill Gates is a billionaire. You ever been around billionaires? Different animals. Ford Foundation. The Rockefeller Network is donating to Indivisible, to the No Kings. These are the Tides Foundation. These are billionaire companies giving money to get rid of Do you think the useful idiots know that they're just rearranging and more billionaires are just trying to get more money and more power on their backs, on the working man's back, Antifa's backs, all that? Well, Antifa doesn't really count, but these are protests that turn violent, as we all know. Even though they own the media, so that's where you get the useful idiots in the media tell the useful idiots these are mostly peaceful protests. I mean, if that doesn't remember that one from 2020 with the dude, the buildings in the city burning behind him? He's like, well, they're mostly peaceful, and we're defending democracy. But democracy doesn't need billionaires. That's who's funding this. And I don't think I got a lot of listeners, maybe some haters from the left, but I mean, aren't you seeing what these billionaires are doing? And Donald Trump's just throwing them off. President Trump's throwing them off and trying to get rid of them. The color revolutions, though, these are tactics that have been used a lot of times, like I said, with Benghazi and stuff like that, and overthrowing governments. And the plan essentially is just flood the streets with useful idiots that think they're doing something noble and then own the media. That's a basic communism 101. And then you can control the narrative if you own the media, and you got the dum-dums, especially now that have their Twitter handle or their X posts and whatnot. And then, our agencies have done this too, and they'll use youth from different countries that they're doing this in, and they don't even know they're being used. I took some notes about this, about the color revolution, because it is fascinating. It's behind the scenes type stuff, but this is like the epitome of political activism, because the governments and the NGOs can take advantage of the people that think they're doing a good thing but aren't quite educated enough to know that they're being used. Oh, and by the way, I didn't put this in my notes, but in case you didn't know, historically, once the powers that are using the useful idiots to get where they want more power, they just shoot the useful idiots. Just keep that in mind. There's not a lot of loyalty there. But allegedly, with the way they put these out, these are a series of non-violent events, and they're just aimed at regime change. And they're called color revolutions because they use different colors for different things. Like in the early 2000s, the most prominent being the Rose Revolution. That was in Georgia. Now, Rose sort of red in Georgia, not Georgia Bulldogs, not Johnny Joey Jones Bulldogs, Georgia type stuff. I'm talking Georgia and Russia, the old Russian thing in 2003. There was an Orange Revolution in 2004. 03, 04, the Orange was in Ukraine. 05 was in Kyrgyzstan. The Tulip Revolution in Kyrgyzstan. So you got Orange, Rose, Tulip. They name them that too. And these movements are characterized by mass protests, civil disobedience. You're seeing it here. And symbolic colors to unify participants and like communicate their message to each other. And the term itself reflects a blend of symbolism, strategy, emphasizing nonviolent resistance, the desire for democratic governance. That's what they're going to tell you. That's what we're going to do, and you're being noble, defending democracy, blah, blah, blah. But scholars often analyze color revolutions through the lens of social movement theory, emphasizing factors such as political opportunity structures, mobilization of civil society, and the role of external actors. A lot of people, different places, a lot of people being organized, a lot of money funding this. And the media is telling you these are just spontaneous. And I mean, if you look at 1 o'clock on the dot, people leave. They're being paid to be there. I've talked to protesters personally who are being paid to be. What do you protest? Don't know. Why are you here then? $50. And have you seen some of the, if you're legitimate, if you have a reason to be protesting, have a reason to be standing up for yourself, your community, your government, whatever, when someone asks you why you're here, you don't just babble, scream in someone's face and say, I shouldn't even be talking to you. The whole point of a protest is to get your message out. But when you see people like that, purple hair, blue hair, dead giveaway, by the way. But they throw it in there. Obviously, they're going to say the nonviolent. What we're using now is mostly peaceful. And you hear words like that a lot. You hear disappeared. You hear unalived. You hear mostly peaceful. That's what they're saying. Peaceful demonstrations, civil disobedience, and the strategic use of the media, which is convenient because the media, our media in this country, doesn't need to be convinced. They're just on the side of the fucking bad guys. And I don't understand that for a second. And then there's your symbolism, your colors, your slogans. If I hear hey, hey, ho, ho, I might just have to blow a fucking hole in someone's heart. But that's it. That's their thing, and the slogans and icons and all that bullshit. And then the support of the billionaires and the NGOs that are coming in. And then they're going to they love to use what they call trigger events because trigger's their favorite word. They love to get triggered. So it could be, I mean, what is it? I mean, they just had the No Kings event right after a ceasefire from the river to the sea. They can't say that anymore because of the ceasefire, which I don't think is going to last. I know what Hamas is like. And, I've had questions about what Israel does in different places. I'm here to tell you I am not on the side of Hamas. They're going to screw it up because they're raised their existence other than destroying Israel is to get to heaven. And the way you get to heaven is by killing yourself, fighting the enemy. And that's what they're taught. That's pretty much it. But they have their triggering events, which was what? A ceasefire? By the way, did the people that are all over from the river have they seen the hundreds of Palestinians being executed by Hamas now? They do that, That's what Hamas does. They're not good. They're going to, what they would do to you. I'm telling you, Queers for Palestine, you're on the wrong side of history. You might be for Palestine. There's nothing wrong with caring for the Palestinian people. Just realize what they will do to you if you go there. They do not like you. They hate you, actually. And if they die fighting you, guess what? They go to heaven. But these color revolutions, they've had impacts on places. We've seen it. Benghazi is a prime example. I'm telling you. They lead to increased democratic reforms. I'm reading the cover. They lead to increased, this is the cover. Democratic reforms, political instability, or authoritarian backlash. If Trump was a king, not only would you not have been able to do that, but had you done it, which you did, he would be arresting everyone, and he's not. He arrests criminals who got here illegally and are breaking the law, and people have a problem with that, and that doesn't make any sense to me. But they're out there. Pay attention to stuff like that too. Everything from the Iran-Contra scandal back in the 80s, Oliver North got famous for that crazy story there. Because doesn't it always seem like the government's doing it for your own good? That's what everything is too. When they come up with something, everything's for your own good. This is for your safety. You need to take your shoes off in line for the TSA for your safety. You need to go through the metal detector for your safety. Stuff like that. I don't think a plane's going to get hit again. I could be wrong. Hope I'm right. But I'm going to read this simply because I put it in my notes as a summary. Color revolutions exemplify the power of nonviolent resistance and civil society activism in challenging entrenched political regimes. This is a sell. This is how we sell it. While they've contributed to what is that word I wrote down? Democratization. Yeah, democratization. I wrote that down. I usually get hit with spell check too. That one just went right through. I guess democratization is sometimes I'll spell big words in the hopes it'll underline it, and I can right click it just so I can see what the actual spelling, but I got that one right. Anyway, they also raised concerns about foreign interference and regional stability. And foreign interference, man, who knows with what? How about that? They got into the cloud this last weekend. China probably did too. That was probably them. But understanding the dynamics of these color revolutions, these movements is crucial for policymakers, scholars, and citizens alike as they navigate the complex interplay between domestic aspirations and international influences. I was reading a lot, studying a lot. That's the selling point for a color revolution. It's a lot dirtier when you get into the agency side of it, and a lot of the dirty money that's coming in there. But the point of that whole soliloquy right there is that these people protesting have no fucking idea what they're talking about. So these are sort of examples of color revolutions and how you can sort of see the description of it, what it actually is and how it can be played. Just getting sources in there on the ground, riling up the locals, riling up the useful idiots and getting them to do stuff. I'm not saying everything out there is being run by our agencies, but this is the premise and the outline for what that is. But it's happening out there, and there are people with a lot of power at stake, and a lot of that government money that's not government money, that's your money the government takes from you. It's in play at different places, and a lot of it's for political theater, but that's it. And then we're getting up into, like I mentioned, Chicago, but then the stuff going on in Portland, the stuff in L.A., the powers in charge there in major cities like that in blue states do not like Trump. That is their goal, to get rid of him, and then they're spinning up. The media and the authorities are spinning up people saying how bad it is, but how bad it is having troops, federal troops in American cities. They're comparing them obviously to Nazis. You hear about Nazis all the time and the Gestapo and all that bullshit, but the president has the right, and the president has a power to combat insurrections and to protect Americans from immediate danger. And we're very familiar with the word insurrection because it was thrown at us because of the January 6th fiasco, which again, I want to deep dive into that one too, because there were so many feds on the ground there, color revolution style, get in the Capitol. We need to go into the Capitol, hearing people yell, that's a Fed. But they do know, and they've seen it everywhere. You've seen it places too, where if you can spin the crowds up, we do have that herd mentality in us, and the crowd can get spun up, and then you can talk grandma into walking through a window that was broke by someone who knew where there was a pile of concrete laying somewhere, or 2x4s or 2x6s, and break in and then follow people in there, take a tour of the Capitol, and then go to solitary confinement for a while. But an insurrection is when people rise up and burn shit and break shit. And if you're breaking windows in the Capitol, yeah, it's an insurrection. If you're burning shit down in Minneapolis, that's an insurrection. It's an act. An insurrection is an violent act revolting against the authorities, which are happening now. Burning buildings and trying to kill federal agents, trying to mess with ICE, harassing ICE. The president's priority is not climate change. Never has been. That's another sort of revolution started by people to keep other people under their power. But the Insurrection Act is a thing. It's real, and that's what's coming in. That's what it was going to come in, and don't believe all the hullabaloo. It's coming. It's legal. It's a federal law that authorizes the President of the United States to deploy military forces and federalized National Guard troops within the United States to suppress civil unrest, insurrections, or rebellions. That's the definition, enacted in 1807. Back then, 1807, we still had a lot of shit going on in the country. Just, recently won a war and about to go into another one. But in 1807, the act provides a legal framework for the president to intervene in domestic disturbances when state authorities are unable, or in this case, a lot of cases, unwilling to maintain it. Some of the keys to the Insurrection Act are allowing the president to use federal military force to suppress insurrections or rebellions. I repeated that. I said it twice because it's important for you to know this. When you hear those TikTok lawyers yelling at cops about, am I being detained? Boy, they burn that one to the ground too, what you can say to the cops, even though you can. There's also a time to be right, but people really don't care. But some of the key points, president, like I said, can, if you're enforcing federal laws, he can put the guard out there. He can protect your civil rights. And civil rights are actually something else, not the shit that, it's civil rights are not showing up somewhere because someone OD'd and then you're going to, make sure you boycott Chick-fil-A or whatever they always do. That, protecting civil rights or protecting people from getting murdered by savages, basically. Providing authority for the president to federalize National Guard units, turning them into federal forces. The act has been invoked several times in U.S. history, notably during the Civil Rights Movement, to enforce desegregation and protect civil rights, as well as during various riots and civil disturbances. But that's a prime example of when there's problems with civil rights, when you're blocking kids from going to school because of the color of their skin. That's when you can bring troops in, which has happened. And this has happened in the country before. Donald Trump is not the first one to do this. It is controversial just due to concerns about overreach of the federal government, and you do need to be careful with that too, because the last thing I want is the feds to be getting bigger, and we're just in kind of conundrum here because I think everyone should want smaller government, but we're not really. They're trying to cut it now, and I think the government shutdown might be helping it because stuff is getting cut. But you don't want a bigger government, but also you don't want the state and local governments to be overreaching, but you don't want the feds to overreach. You can see this is quite a pickle to be in. But there are judges out there right now that are blocking Trump from doing this, President Trump and his administration from doing this, and they're from LA, Portland, Chicago. And I am not a lawyer or a judge, but I do know that if you're blocking the president from doing this in major cities that are under insurrection by definition, that means you are operating outside of the Constitution of the United States. I mean, look at Portland, right? They've been under siege for weeks, and they're threatening ICE agents. They're burning down buildings. They're trying to overthrow federal buildings and kill ICE agents. And there's an appeals court that did say that Trump can put troops in there, and they're going to Portland. There will be appeals. That'll be interesting to watch, but they're going in there now. And then Chicago, I was just there. I mentioned that. There's chaos there. I didn't see a lot of chaos, but I did operate in the daytime. I did play golf twice. I gave 2 speeches, so I'm indoors. And when I'm outdoors, if I'm outdoors playing golf and you're in the mood for an insurrection, don't come near me if I'm holding my driver because I'm in the mood to hit something for a change, and it's probably not the golf ball. That's a different story. But just recently, there was a woman who was armed, and she was like leading a motorcade against ICE agents, trying to block them, trying to hit them, trying to hit people with the car. She had a gun, and she's trying to kill ICE. This is an insurrection by definition again. And so ICE did shoot her. Then they're surrounding her. Didn't kill her. She's fine. And then they were requesting backup. I think I mentioned this last week, and local Chicago cops were on their way, but the chief of patrol cleared them out, and he works with the chief of police. They denied doing that. There's audio. If law enforcement, regardless of the precinct or which version they are in trouble, and they call for other law enforcement, I've never been a cop, but I would assume other cops want to go help out. I know they do. But the power's up there. The guys that got through, that snuck through and got promoted, you know the guys. The guys that kind of come in with seniority for bullshit reasons, pull them off. This is anarchy. If cops can't be protected by other cops and they're being surrounded, and then a federal judge, not a federal judge, but a judge, I don't know which kind of judge, I didn't write it down. Some judge released this woman, Miramar Martinez is her name. They just released her. She should be in jail waiting trial, right? Trying to kill a cop, but that's anarchy. So they're going to send the guard in because of the insurrection act, perfectly within the Constitution. And the guard now, they're going to show up. They will be armed. They cannot arrest, but they can detain. So if one of those cutesy poos with a little orange hair says, "Am I being detained?" After a couple good man stoppers, you reply, "Yes, you're being detained." And then you can, at that point, they'd have to wait for the locals, but you got to look one step ahead of this. If the local law enforcement aren't taking them, or they are taking them and a judge just releases them, bring someone with you, and they are bringing U.S. Marshals because you can't trust the locals, which is kind of a sad state of affairs. And you got to wonder what the local cops are doing too, because like up in Portland, it seems like they're actively working with Antifa. You see Antifa guys antagonize the ICE guys, and then they run behind the Portland cops, and the Portland cops didn't do anything to them. Is that like Stockholm Syndrome type stuff, or what's going on? I mean, they have to live with that nonsense and work for the chiefs up there, and the city council, and Portland is a fucking zoo. So, yeah, I mean, you got to send in feds, you got to send in National Guard to do that. We worked with cops in Portland. We did a realistic urban training in Portland a number of years ago. It was awesome, too. TF-160, SEAL Team 6, a lot of our Air Force folks. A lot of fun up there. There was more of a Keep Portland Weird vibe, the People's Republic of Portland type shit, but they weren't near as crazy as they are now. We used to like go out in town and everything and whatnot. The locals, they liked the helicopters, and the cops there were awesome. One of the best toasts I ever had was, I've probably mentioned this before, but one of the dudes from the SWAT team, they were great too. That Portland SWAT team was awesome. And I know there's guys out there like that too. I just wish the head shed wasn't so shitty. But we did a yard-in party at a fire hall, which is awesome. And one of the guys, the head guys at SWAT, it's a yard. It's 3 feet of beer, and you've seen him. The Yard House, stuff like that. He grabbed one. His toast was awesome. He said, "Here's the SEAL Team 6 because even cops need heroes." That was pretty dope. Okay, I'm not bragging on SEALs. I thought it was neat that they would do that. But they were good, but now they're not. So we have to send guys up there. They're going. Judges are letting them in, so we'll see what happens there. But the Insurrection Act has been used before. Did you know that in 2013, President Obama actually allowed the entire police department in New Orleans to be taken over by feds? The cops were not doing their job. They were doing a job. They're going around, getting their own shit done, a little Wild West style, but they weren't doing it. So in 2013, the Insurrection Act was used. Cops went down there so the feds could have oversight on them. And that order is still in play. You might not know that, but there are still federal overseers for the New Orleans Police Department. So I want to get into this day in history. That's always fun for me. I love looking up stuff that happened today. But I want to go. I was doing a little typing as I was talking, so if I didn't make sense, I can blame myself, which is awesome. But the no kings thing too, this just cracked me up because I was doing a little mathy poo, and no kings. There are 3 people in government right now on the no king side. Their names are Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, and Bernie Sanders. They're pretty loud too. And no kings, they've been in office for a combined 116 years. No kings. It's a lot of government work there. Thanks for keeping us safe, huh? Oh, but this is my favorite part too. I love reading day in history. Just, it's fun to go back in history. And it's a lot more fun lately too, because I need to research a little bit more. I know people are using AI to write their papers and make sure their shit's squared away, but I've had instances where AI has lied to me, and it is fun to. You shouldn't really engage AI if you're typing to them or even talking to them. Friendly. Don't get too friendly. Don't get friendly at all. Don't tell them thank you, because they're not. But I have caught them lying to me a few times, so I've had to research these. So if I am wrong on any of my days in history, please let me know. But there are a couple cool ones too. I'm not going to bore you to death with them. But on this day, October 22nd, and I'm going to just reconfirm. Yes, Wednesday, October 22nd. On this day, Harry Houdini got hit in the stomach. He was doing something. He was just showing off his ab strength, and Houdini could do a lot of stuff. He got hit in the guts, sort of a sucker punch type situation that ended up killing him on October 31st. So on the 22nd, he was hit. What went on leading up to this is a series of shots to the abdomen he took. According to reports, Houdini was punched unexpectedly by a college student while he was demonstrating his abdominal strength, which may have contributed to the rupture of his appendix. And that blasted. And despite medical attention, he did succumb to the infection in his guts later. So that's crazy. He got punched in the guts and then died a couple days later. That was way, way back in 1926. But in 1939, this is kind of funny because I had to read this twice. 1939, NBC becomes the first network to televise a pro football game, NFL. And listen to these teams, the Brooklyn Dodgers. Yeah, I said that right. The Brooklyn Dodgers beat the Philadelphia Eagles 23-14 at Brooklyn's Ebbets Field. Now, the Brooklyn Dodgers were a very famous baseball team, but they were also a football team in the National Football League for a brief period. They were in the NFL from 1930 to 1943, so that's 14 years. The team was based in Brooklyn, New York, and one of the early NFL franchises before eventually whatever happened to them. They relocated, I suppose. That's pretty crazy, too. And then on this day, President Kennedy in 1962 addressed the nation on television about the Cuban Missile Crisis. That was the Cuban Missile Crisis is one of the most perilous moments in Cold War history. It brought us and the Soviets to the brink of nuclear war, and that's where Kennedy addressed the American people, and that address played a pivotal role in shaping public understanding and responses to what's actually going on. So we're getting into real-time stuff. Now, obviously not like social media, the internet, and whatnot, because Al Gore wasn't around to invent it. But this is the fastest way to say, hey, we got an issue. And he gave a speech that was not only articulated the gravity of the situation, but also demonstrated the presidential leadership during a time of national and global crises. And there was a lot going on in Cuba, too, and a lot of it spilled over to certain spots, certain conspiracies. But in 1962, Intel Services uncovered Soviet missile installations in Cuba. and they're in Cuba, so they're capable of striking the continental United States. And the discovery of these alarmed our policymakers, and after this address, the public, and it signaled significant escalation in this Cold War. That there were a lot of tensions there. And under Nikita Khrushchev, the Soviet Union aimed to bolster its strategic position and support its communist ally, Cuba, following the failed Bay of Pigs invasion in 1961. There's a lot behind that, too, the Bay of Pigs invasion. Kennedy didn't want to do that. Our agency kind of forced that. No air support. A lot of bad blood between the agency and the president. I wonder whatever happened to Kennedy. It was also around the same time that there were nations trying to get nuclear weapons that Kennedy didn't want. And he was killed. But the U.S. response required careful the Cuban Missile Crisis, and military considerations, ultimately leading to what happened on October 7th when he addressed the country from the White House. It was clear, firm, and measured, and aimed to inform the nation about the Soviet presence of missiles in Cuba and the steps the United States was taking to address this threat. That's got to be something, too, back in the 60s, where everybody trusts everyone, and Soviets bad, Americans good. Kennedys are faithful to their wives, shit like that. Kennedy began to emphasize the seriousness of the situation, and he said, "This government, as promised, has maintained the closest surveillance of the Soviet military buildup on the island of Cuba." And he talked about the United States had established a naval blockade, a quarantine, which is another word we'd love to throw around, and it prevent the Cubans and the Soviets from intermingling and the Soviets bringing military equipment in. And Kennedy underscored the importance of patience and restraint, urging Americans to remain calm and united. That's a good one, too. That's a good leader, because even if you're not doing anything to help, like screaming and yelling and playing the victim, he was just saying, hey, calm down, don't scream and yell, and you're not a victim, basically. That wasn't his speech, but I don't have the whole speech written here. I'm assuming he leaned towards that. But throughout the speech, he did balance firmness with diplomacy. Carry the big stick. He warned that any missile attack from Cuba would be met with a full retaliatory response upon the Soviet Union. He's saying, hey, you hit us from there, we're going to crush the Soviet Union. That's very close to being bad. And we're talking nuclear conflict, which for some reason we talk about a lot. He also expressed a desire for a peaceful resolution, which is nice to hear. We hope this quarantine will bring about a peaceful solution of what he said. But his address was instrumental in shaping public perception and rallying national support, reassured Americans that their government was actively addressing the threat while avoiding panic. The speech also demonstrated presidential leadership, calm, transparent, resolute, the qualities that maintained and helped with national stability. And you need a good leader like that at a time like that. Kennedy's careful articulation of the crisis set the stage for subsequent negotiations with the Russians. The address underscored the importance of diplomacy, ultimately leading to a secret agreement in which Soviets would dismantle their missiles in Cuba in exchange for the U.S. promising not to invade Cuba and secretly removing U.S. missiles from Turkey. So we are putting missiles in Turkey over there. And again, look at Ukraine. We said we would put Blinken, I think, Secretary of State, last administration did say we'll put our missiles wherever we want. But for this thing, President Kennedy's address to the nation happened on the 22nd of October. It was a defining moment in American history. It exemplified effective presidential communications during a time of crisis and played a crucial role in managing public anxiety while asserting U.S. resolve. President Kennedy informed Americans about the immediate threat, but also contributed to the eventual peaceful resolution of the crisis, highlighting the importance of leadership, diplomacy, clear communications in the moment of national peril. Clear communications. You're rarely going to go wrong if you're communicating clearly. And that's what Kennedy did. Nothing wrong with telling the truth, being clear with your communications. And the first key to effective communication is when you're done saying what you're saying, stop saying it. When the sale's over, stop selling it. You sold it. Good job. So that's this day with Kennedy in 1962. And then in 1969, this has always been one of my favorites. I grew up a Beatles fan because of Tommy O, my older brother. We're always rapping about the Beatles, playing the Beatles. I think I'm going to get a record player, get some old Beatles out, listen to them up here when I'm eventually going to finish construction. But this one's cool because in 1969 is when Paul McCartney denied being dead. There was the Paul is dead conspiracy, if you heard of that. It was they're saying Paul died in a car accident and was replaced by a body double. And on the front of Abbey Road, their famous album, they're crossing a crosswalk and it looks like a funeral procession. The four Beatles are John Lennon's in front. He's wearing this is the conspiracy. On the album, Abbey Road, great album, John Lennon's wearing a white suit to represent a clergyman. He's up front, followed by Ringo in a black suit, meaning he's the Undertaker. And Harrison is in a denim jacket. He's in denim representing a gravedigger, and Paul's the corpse. And the cool thing, if you look at Paul, and that he's the only one that's not wearing shoes. So he's barefoot. Allegedly, that's the way, it's a symbol of death. Saying that a lot of people said they bury people like that so they don't waste shoes. He's out of step, too. They're in step. The other three Beatles, he's not in step, which is cool. What they're saying is the story is Paul, he was wearing sandals because he's a big old hippie, which is kick-ass. He kicked his sandals off because they were uncomfortable on a hot day. That's what an outfit called Mental Floss said. But he was also smoking a cigarette in his right hand, and conspiracy theorists point out that it's in his right hand. Paul McCartney is actually left-handed. You can tell by the way he slapped at the bass. That's just another clue. And I think the Beatles Museum actually says that too. But then if you look, there's a Volkswagen nearby too. This one's funny. There's a license plate on said Volkswagen that says LMW, Lima Mike Whiskey, 28F, 28 India Fox. So LMW 28IF, which stands for Linda McCartney Widowed. That was his wife. And then 28IF stands for he'd been 28 if he was alive because they shot that he was 27 years old when the photo was taken. That adds to the theories. Isn't that crazy to think that's the Abbey Road on that, the way they look, those dudes are 27, 28. And there's a police van in the photo. The presence of a police van is often cited as evidence that at accident scenes there's going to be a cop car. Paul McCartney's explanation, he stated he was walking barefoot. It was hot, out of step. He explained he's out of step because of the way the photo was taken and the natural stride of the group. About the smoke, McCartney said he often held cigarettes in his right hand, and 28F is likely a coincidence, not a deliberate clue. The Beatles' response, they dismissed the Paul is dead theory, and post-cover evidence, the theory has been further debunked by the fact that Paul McCartney is, in fact, alive. And he's been releasing music since. I think my brother Tommy O just saw him like up in Minneapolis. I met him. I was with Dave Grohl at the Super Bowl, and he asked me if I wanted to meet Paul McCartney, and I said yes. And I met Paul McCartney. So I had a picture. I've told this story for sure. I have a picture. I can post it if you want. Tell me if you want me to post it. It's me, Paul McCartney, and Dave Grohl. And I actually sent that picture back to my younger sister. I texted it to her, and she saw it and said, "Oh, my God, you're hanging out with Dave Grohl again, and that old lady looks just like Paul McCartney." So if you want me to post that, I will. It's pretty funny, but I think I've posted it before. But that was, Paul is dead. He said he wasn't dead, and then on this day in 1969. So later on, I like this one too. In 1975, Soviet spacecraft Venera 9. I like this because I go through reels and look at conspiracies all night long, and some of them are funny, like the flat Earth, never been to space, never been to the moon, all that shit. In 1975, it says the Soviet spacecraft Venera 9 soft lands on Venus, the planet, becoming the first lander to return images from the surface of another planet. Now, I did research on that, and they were saying we never put people on Venus. That's questionable. They said they've orbited Venus, and we have pictures. But they're saying, the Russians said, 1 year before my birth, they soft landed and took some pictures on Venus. So, who knows? And also on this day in 1978, Pope John Paul II is inaugurated as Pope. October 22nd. That's pretty cool. That's some on this day. I'm a big fan of the Beatles. I love how they said that. And obviously the Pope. He's the greatest Pope in our modern history, not like what's going on lately. We've got popes out there blessing big ice cubes because of global warming, because of Vatican. The Vatican's tied into something, aren't they? I don't even want to get into that right now. So just remember, if you go outside and there is an insurrection, maybe the Fed. Have you heard from the people who actually live in places like Memphis and like DC when the National Guard came in? They love it, man. They can play in their backyards without getting shot. It's not in the Constitution, but I think if you're an American, you should be able to go outside your backyard and not get shot. So we should clean this bullshit up, and I hope so. So remember, if you're in the shit and you're in your neighborhood, you just call the feds, man, and you're never out of the fight.